Greetings, BArcadians, and welcome to another edition of the BA Gaming News Show. Every Friday at 5 PM with your hosts, me, Tabz, and my good friend Rich. So hello, Rich.
Hello.
Nice, I like that. We'll make that a thing. So yeah, we've got three juicy, well, I'd say juicy. They're not the most glamorous of topics this week. It's been a slow week for gaming news, I would say. Interesting though, you know, if you're into it.
I mean, it can't always be like super exciting like it has, but I mean, the last sort of, I would say, month, it's just been stories and stories and stories,
yeah.
You know, so I guess it can't always be like that.
This is it. But first of all, as we always do every week, we catch up each other on what we've mostly been playing. So Rich, hit us with what you've got.
Much the same as last week really. Monster Hunter with you, a bit more of that, and some more Tony Hawk's. Well, pretty much completed Tony Hawk's, to be honest.
Have you?
Yeah, I've just got some of the highest scores to get, some of the highest scores that you need to get. Yeah, unlocked all the levels, done pretty much most of the game, to be fair.
That's a good selling point for it then. You obviously really enjoyed it. If you
yeah, mate, yeah. I mean, it's one of those games you can like get through it pretty quickly. I think we had a look, we're up to like 20 odd hours on it or something.
Nice.
So it's good. I've really enjoyed it. I think it's one of those games, as you get better at it, it becomes more fun as well.
Yeah.
You know, you can start really chaining all your combos and stuff.
Expressing yourself.
This is it, and yeah, it's good. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. What about you, Tabz? Well, I hear you've been playing a game of a generation.
Well, basically, I started the week playing Mario, the 3D All Stars collection. Kind of dabbled in a few, grabbed a few stars, and then I heard all this kicking off on Twitter about Hades for the Switch. This kind of roguelike game, and I thought, well, there's a sale on it. I think it was 17 quid. I'll give it a whirl. So I downloaded it, played it a couple of times, and I've not looked back. Basically, ever since. It's so addictive. So yeah, maybe I'll do a review on it.
Maybe yeah. I mean, you're very passionate about it.
Yeah, I am. I've guilted Rich into buying it. Literally, just prior to filming this, he's downloaded it. So I'm trying to recruit another member of the Hades Massive.
This is a quote from this week. Mate, you need to buy Hades. I need to talk to you about it, so you need to buy it.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So, BArcadians, if you're playing it, let me know what you think. I'd love to just talk about Hades. If you've not played it, you've got a Switch, I would suggest check it out. It's really good. Roguelike, hack and slash, dungeon crawler, isometric viewpoint, but I don't like roguelike games that much, but this one just got under my skin so quickly, so give it a whirl. But Rich, shall I push us on?
Go for it, mate.
So first topic this week to discuss is CD Projekt Red Crunch. So yeah, it's disappointing this. I've always been a massive fan myself of CD Projekt Red, but we've got this article from the BBC, and they've said employees working on the highly anticipated video game Cyberpunk 2077 will be forced to work a mandatory 6-day week to hit its release deadline. This contradicts a previous pledge from the studio not to impose a so-called crunch. CD Projekt Red told staff mandatory overtime would be introduced in the weeks leading up to the November release of the game. And apparently the company said it's one of the hardest decisions they've ever had to make. Last year, its chief executive had promised to allow staff to opt out of extra hours. And obviously this comes after months of delays. Originally it was supposed to launch in April 2020, pushed back to September, and then again to November. So clearly this has been a hard one to course, you know, and project its development on. It looks a highly ambitious game, so I'm not necessarily surprised. They want to get it right, we want them to get it right. But specifically, a chap, Mr. Badowski, I think he's a higher up at CD Projekt Red, specifically came out and he said, actually no, this was an email to staff, internally. I take it upon myself to receive the full backlash for the decision. I know this is in direct opposition to what we said about Crunch. It's also in direct opposition to what I personally grew to believe a while back, that Crunch should never be the answer. But we've extended all of the possible means of navigating the situation, presumably another delay is not.
What he means by that is we've already delayed it twice. We cannot delay it again.
This is it. So, Rich, you know, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think they're in a very difficult situation because their game, I personally think, if they miss the next-gen window, I think their game will suffer because of that, and that will be damaging for the game. And I think they have this very unique, very short window of opportunity to release the game on next gen, and they can't miss that window now, especially having already, like we've just mentioned, postponed it twice. So I think they were sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. They either did miss that, and that could be quite damaging of them as a product, or they put the crunch on, and I think they've chosen the lesser of two evils, I guess.
Yeah, I agree that wholeheartedly. We said, didn't we, cynically, the September delay to November, we thought was because, well, let's cash in on next gen.
Absolutely.
And then obviously they came out with this proposal of an update, the next gen update that was going to be free. So I feel exactly the same. They know that they're probably going to get a lot of uptake from next gen on this as well. So they've got to seize it. And yeah, maybe there's some polishing there that, you know, if I was working on it, it's such a highly ambitious, potentially game of a decade. You know, that you want to get it as best as it can possibly look. So
I think one of the things to remember is, historically, throughout all the generations of consoles that come out, the launch lineups are generally quite poor. You don't have lots of great games to go and play, and often, and me and you have done it a lot, you end up buying games as your launch games that you're not that bothered about. In any other circumstance, you wouldn't buy it. You might buy a FIFA
for the sake of it.
Just because to have more games to play. And I think this is sort of filling that void where maybe the launch lines up aren't great on both Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. And this being there, that's going to be the game people are going to go to pad out their start of their next gen. That's, you know, almost to the point where I think they'll sell a lot of this game with new consoles.
To be honest, mate, I'm currently in that quandary. Do I play this first, or do I play Spider-Man Miles Morales? I don't know which one I want to play first. But yeah, crunch is never great. It's an industry practice which needs to be controlled, and clearly developers are struggling. Who knows what the answer is? It is a real shame because I really like CD Projekt Red and their philosophies, their strategies. They've been very pro-customer, pro-consumer, very considerate sort of company in the past, and obviously this, as they say themselves, is not ideal.
The only thing I'll say on that is this story broke yesterday, where we're only like, what, 6-7 weeks away from console launch? So the crunch is going to be a very short-lived period of time. So hopefully after that, you know, everyone can get back to whatever normality is in the gaming's developing world.
And they have tried to mitigate it somewhat. I understand that they're going to get paid for these 6 days, and also I think the staff receive 10% of the annual profits or something like that.
Okay.
So there's some sort of incentive there. It's not like they're just exploiting them, which I think some companies in the industry do. They just pressure people into working and don't remunerate them for it. So, you know, at least that's something. But Rich, enough about that. Move us on to the next.
So next up, we've got Xbox Series X backwards compatibility, and it's something that anyone going out there and buying an Xbox Series X is going to want to know about. This one comes from Eurogamer. Right now, I think the Series X backwards compatible delivers circa 2 times GPU power, limited perhaps a touch by memory bandwidth, and offers what amounts to a bottomless pit of CPU resources, to the point where I don't feel I hit processor limit at all during my tests. The fact that Microsoft is talking about 4 times resolution multipliers and double frame rate upgraders says to me that the firm knows there's something special here, and I really want to see these features deployed as broadly as possible. The dream would be to see frame rates unlocking a system level feature, just as auto HDR is. So basically what this is saying is, it looks like there's some good credence in the fact that they are going to be able to have these things going on with this 4 times resolution multiplier, which they're saying games that have backwards compatibility are going to be able to. So it's interesting. I mean, they've got a much bigger and better backwards compatibility sort of.
Sony.
Yeah, because at the moment Sony it's PS4, and actually we heard, I think was it last week, that it might not be all PS4 games that are backwards compatibility.
99%.
Something like that.
I heard 94% though this week, so I don't know if it's going down.
Blimey. So yeah, I think this is interesting. I'm liking the fact there's going to be at least some form of upscaling, which is good, because with the additional power, you've got to think that's got to be a must. But what do you make of this, Tabz?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great selling point for the Series X, and it's obviously good to hear positive news about their next-gen console. I think this was specifically from Richard Ledbetter of Digital Foundry. We got it from Eurogamer, but I think he works with them. So check it out. It's actually really interesting. Provides a lot of detail about it. I mean, I'm not so fussed about this stuff because generally I kind of tend to follow the cutting edge. I do miss games, I can't play them all, but we generally tend to buy games as they come out, we play them and enjoy them. So I don't think there's a great deal of games that I'll be personally looking to play backwards compatibility if I was to buy an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5. But it's great to see, you know, you do get certain games that will benefit. For example, Bloodborne. Yeah. You know, that has a notoriously challenging frame rate, yet it's a game that demands a lot from you as a player. So those sorts of games will have a big, a better experience because of these backwards compatibility. And it's great to see Microsoft invest in the technology, you know, at a system level, as he says, these kind of advancements. So you can mess around with improving resolution, frames per second, HDR, you know, and obviously Rich wants to see unlocked frame rates, which I'd love to see PlayStation do that with. Whether the different scales of the companies affects that, PlayStation tend to focus more on smaller scale things, and they'd outsource these sorts of changes to developers individually, which is perhaps why we don't see it implemented. But yeah, I mean, it's only a good thing, and we know Microsoft's strategy, straddle everything, total accessibility. It fits in with that.
Absolutely,
so, you know, if we are strong-armed Rich into buying an Xbox Series X because of the Bethesda acquisition, then, you know, it's only a good thing. It's another feature.
Absolutely.
Shall I push us on?
Move us on, Tabz.
So third and final, you know, big topic to discuss today is PS5 save states. So this comes from T3. If you're planning on upgrading to the PS5 at launch or grabbing one for Christmas, you may find yourself in a position where you'll be playing the upgraded version of a game you started on the PS4 and will be finishing on the PS5. But it looks like the support for the transition of save data between the PS4 and PS5 versions isn't guaranteed. And the decision may depend entirely on the developers. So Yakuza Like a Dragon developer RGG Studio took to Twitter to clarify that players can upgrade to the PS5 version of the game using their PS4 disc, but added that save data won't make the trip along with the two pieces of hardware. So confusion has then been compounded with a tweet from a games journalist known as Gene Park, who says he's heard from numerous developers that save data may not transfer from the PS4 to the PS5 when playing upgraded titles. I mean, what does this say? It perhaps says to me that Sony hasn't paved the way for developers to make an easy implementation to drag save data from PS4 to PS5 games, and therefore it's put upon the developers to really perhaps spend quite a bit of time and investment into making that possible, and therefore, you know, the incentive isn't really there for them to do so. Again, on the back of what we've just discussed in that Xbox article, them nailing backwards compatibility, and I think we've seen that save states on Xbox games is catered for, broadly speaking at least. Well, it's a bit of a shot, isn't it, in Sony's, bit of a thorn in their side, and doesn't come across great. But Rich, you know, how do you feel about this personally?
Yeah, it's one of those. I think if you're playing, like for instance, you've played Spider-Man on the PS4, you've completed Spider-Man on the PS4. I know you've not specifically gone for the remaster of it on the PS5, but say you had, you know, it would be nice. Do you really want to play that whole game again, which you played, what, a year ago, 18 months ago? Probably not. So it would be nice to migrate your save file across to the remastered version, but
I would have bought the Ultimate Edition if I knew the save state would have transferred.
Oh, okay.
So I will say that. So to be honest, this is a shame.
Now, the only thing I have said on that, Spider-Man specifically, the Spider-Man save file from the PS4 version, you are going to be able to use that in the Miles Morales. What that
means, came out with that today, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they did. So what that means, I don't know. Does that mean that you still get basically everything you've unlocked in the PS4 version is unlocked in the PS5 version? I don't know how that means, but that says to me that this is a thing. It's definitely possible to do that. Yeah. There's not some sort of weird file compatibility thing going on. It's just, it has to be enabled. And I guess, like you've just said, that maybe Sony are not allowing them to easily make this accessible, and that's part of the problem.
I think it's like we've just said, we know Microsoft are doing a lot of work at the system level, which paves the way for these sort of things. Sony perhaps haven't, and therefore the burden falls to developers to do it. And obviously, you know, they're working on the next games, but they want to go back in time to something they're not going to get a lot of revenue from. Probably not. So again, let us know what you think to that, BArcadians. Yeah, a bit of a kind of a technical hardware perspective week, isn't it? I feel like Digital Foundry this week. But Rich, do you want to start us off with everything else?
Absolutely. So Pathless, some of you will remember that from the recent, or I don't know if it's a recent or the previous one. It's basically an archer, open world archer game, which was shown in the PS5 showcase recently. That
looks very indie to me.
Yes, yes, definitely. That now has a release date, and I can confirm that that will be a PS5 launch game.
Demon Souls PS5 remake has different modes for 4K and high frame rates, so we presume a performance mode and a resolution mode.
I think this is very interesting. I think we could see this a lot moving forward into next gen, because not everyone has a 4K TV. So people who don't have a 4K TV, they're going to want to have better frame rates than they are bothered about 4K, whereas some people are going to be bothered about 4K. I think moving forward, you know, say we look 4 or 5 years into the future when 4K TVs are more adopted, I think we'll start to see higher frame rates on 4K, and that's where we'll see it more adopted. But I think certainly for the first part of this generation, I think that's going to be across the board on most games, I would think.
I'd agree with that. AAA games, 1080p, 60 frames per second, or they'll probably have a 4K at 30 frames per second mode. And I think, yeah, as you say, hopefully we'll push towards 40K, 60 frames per second eventually. But that'll be a couple of years.
I mean, this 4K 120, I don't think we'll see.
That's a dream.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see any of that until end of console cycle.
And maybe only on the Series X. Because it's got the headroom for it.
I mean, this whole 8K nonsense, you're not going to see any games running on the PS5 in 8K.
Yes.
I think also you're not going to see any games running in 8K on the Xbox Series X either.
Yeah, I'd agree.
We'll see. Hopefully, I'm proved wrong on that.
DLSS, you don't know.
This is it, true.
Anyway, take us away.
Peter Parker has been reskinned in the PS5 remaster of Spider-Man, which obviously, as we previously mentioned, originally for the PS4, seemingly taking on a more Tom Holland look, which I guess fits with their current film series, so it makes sense, I guess.
I think it looks better, more natural, you know, younger, plays the part, but it is weird.
Looks like a teenager rather than a 35-year-old.
Yeah,
which is obviously par for the course.
It looks in the original like a 35-year-old Photoshop to look younger.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does fit it better. An interesting Sony patent shows a possible nod to a new controller design for PSVR. So we're pondering if a new next-gen upgrade is in the works.
It's got to be, surely.
They've invested so much in previous gen, you know, surely they will. It just seems maybe they want to focus on just get the hardware in the homes first, then we'll worry about the next gen VR.
To be fair, it could be that's 6 months, a year away yet, you know. So, and I think the current headset works, so I think in order to move that forward, they need to come with something better. You know, and I think that is some technology that they need to, you know, to be working on. So it's interesting, and we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
Just announced today, Thursday, a new Smash Brothers DLC fighter has been announced, and it's Steve from Minecraft.
Yeah, indeed. I think he looks cool. And next up, Genshin Impact, long touted as a Breath of the Wild ripoff, has appeared to landed in the hands of influencers, YouTubers, games journalists around the globe, and reports are, yes, it is a rip-off of Breath of the Wild. Apparently it has some identity besides, but I saw a Nintendo Live video earlier, and you know, they just blow by blow about 10 different things that are literally, you know, like for like in Breath of the Wild. Okay. So yeah, we'll wait to hear the reviews on that.
And finally, as Tabz mentioned earlier, Hades, game of the generation. Go and play it today.
Listen, calm down a little bit. You know, it's fantastic and it's addictive, and yeah, it's given me an enthusiasm to play a game that I've not had for a while. So, you know, I want to temper the game of the generation talk, but yeah, if you've got a Switch, just give it a whirl. It's pretty cheap, 20 quid. Not bad.
Cards on the table, BArcadians. I made the game of a generation thing up just because of how ridiculously into this game Tabz is.
I'm excited. No doubt it'll be on the next BA News next week.
Yeah.
And that wraps it all up for us, BArcadians. So thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate it. Smash that like button for us. Make sure you subscribe and you rang that bell for notifications. Share it with a friend. Get our name out there. And I think that's it for now. We'll see you next week. And that's another one for the archives, Rich.
Stamped and completed.